The ballroom was all crystal and gold, shimmering under chandeliers, so blinding they made your soul feel small. Everyone wore pride like a tailored suit, especially my brother, Brandon, standing at the altar like a prince reborn. My heels clicked against marble as I stepped in, dressed modestly in a navy dress I'd bought from a thrift store just last week. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I wasn't supposed to be there, and they knew it the second I showed up. My father's voice sliced through the string quartet like a knife through cake. She came, he barked. After everything? You have some nerve, Eliana. Heads turned. Silence fell. My stepmother, Cynthia, curled her lip like I was dirt on her shoe. You think this is a family reunion? We didn't order extra food for the unemployed. The laughter began as whispers, then chuckles, then loud, malicious cackles from my cousins' uncles, the same people who once kissed my cheeks and told me I was destined for big things. Now they stared at me like I was a charity case who overstayed her welcome. I swallowed my pride. I just came to say congratulations. My father scoffed. Security, he snapped, snapping his fingers as if I were a waitress who got his order wrong. Get this failure out of here. Before I could react, 2 uniformed guards were already closing in. I turned toward him. You're humiliating your own daughter at your son's wedding. That's right, Cynthia hissed. Because you're worth less than the flowers on these damn tables. Brandon never said a word. He stood by the altar like I was a ghost. The same brother who used to cry when I sang him to sleep now looked through me like I didn't exist. My arms were grabbed. My purse fell. I didn't struggle. I didn't scream. I simply looked at them, all of them one final time. I hope this night feels perfect for now, I said calmly. Because tomorrow, you'll remember it as the moment you lost me forever. They laughed again, louder this time. Then the ballroom doors creaked. A tall man in a black suit walked in. His presence felt like a punch to the gut. His eyes scanned the room, cold and assessing. And when he spoke, the world stopped breathing. Eliana, he said. Who the hell laid a hand on my wife? My father blinked. Cynthia's wine glass shattered against the floor, and the entire room went silent. Nobody moved. Not even the violinist, whose bow now hung midair like time had been frozen. The man in the black suit stepped forward. His tone was calm, too calm, but there was fire simmering beneath every syllable. His voice wasn't loud, but it echoed in every corner like thunder trapped in glass. Eliana, he repeated, his gaze piercing through the guards holding her arms. Are you all right? My breath caught. I hadn't planned for this moment to happen today. Not like this. I'm fine, I murmured, barely able to speak. He turned to the security guards, 2 bulky men who suddenly looked very, very small. Let her go. Not a suggestion. A final warning. They released me like they'd just realized they were gripping a live wire. Cynthia stepped forward, stuttering. Wait. Who are you exactly? His eyes narrowed. Gabriel Vaughn, he replied smoothly, slipping a card from his pocket and placing it on a silver platter beside a shrimp tower. CEO of Vaughn Atlantic. Maybe you've heard of it, or maybe you just wear it stock on your wrists. Ray, my father, picked up the card, blinked once, then twice. Brandon's groomsmen stopped smirking. Impossible, my father whispered. Not impossible, I said. Just inconvenient for you. Gabriel didn't move closer to them. He didn't need to. He just placed a soft hand on my back. Steady, reassuring. And the room, once filled with sneers and giggles, was now so quiet you could hear someone's watch ticking. You married him? Brandon finally asked, his voice almost a squeak. Cynthia laughed nervously. She's lying. This is a setup. Look at her. Look at him. Gabriel turned to her. I was at the Forbes Gala 3 nights ago. You were there too, Mrs. Carter, if I recall. I remember you quite clearly staring at me while I was on stage. Interesting that you didn't recognize your own daughter-in-law then. Cynthia's face turned a mottled shade of red. And for the record, he added sharply, this woman, your failure, was the only reason I survived last year's lowest quarter. She gave me a strategy that added $270 million to our portfolio. You want to know who she is? He stepped aside and gestured to me. She's the reason I'm still standing. I didn't expect the room to erupt in applause. And it didn't. They just stood there, stunned, as if the walls had turned inside out and the truth came flooding through. I looked at Brandon, whose mouth hung open like a broken hinge. You forgot I existed when your wedding got planned, I said, voice steady but tight with the weight of old wounds. You never sent an invite, but you made sure to put me on the no-entry list. Eliana, he began. Don't, I said. You made your choice. All of you did. My father tried to regain ground. You should have told us you were married to him. Would it have mattered? I asked. Would you have treated me better because I was attached to a rich man? Ray looked down. Cynthia reached for a champagne flute, her hands trembling too hard to grasp it. Gabriel placed a soft kiss on my temple. Then he looked back at the room. We're not staying, he said. We came to return something. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Gabriel handed it to me, and I walked forward, holding it with the same calmness my father had once mocked in me as cowardice. I bought the estate, I said, holding it out to Ray. The one you mortgaged to fund this wedding. Ray didn't take it. He couldn't. I also canceled the decorators, Gabriel added. They'll be packing up after dessert. Dead. Silence. Brandon's fiancée was the first to sit down, pale as the ivory ribbon on her dress. Let's go, Gabriel said, taking my hand. And as we turned, I whispered back to the room. This was never about revenge. They watched, frozen in their designer suits and rented pride, as I walked out with the man who saw me before the world ever did. But they hadn't seen the final card I was about to play. Not yet. The limo door clicked shut behind us. The chaos of the wedding faded into distant murmurs. But inside, the air still vibrated with everything unspoken. Gabriel reached over and gently took my hand. You all right? He asked, eyes scanning my face like he could see every emotion beneath the surface. I nodded. Yeah, just surprised you showed up like that. He smiled. I promised I'd never let anyone humiliate you again. And he meant it. Because he knew exactly what I'd endured. 2 years ago, I was living in a one-bedroom walk-up in East Harlem, piecing together part-time jobs and selling handmade soaps on Etsy to pay off my student debt. My family had cut me off after I refused to take the corporate job my father arranged. A favor, he called it, for someone as average as you. I remembered sitting alone on my fire escape, watching the city lights flicker below like they were laughing too. And that's when I met Gabriel Vaughn. Not at some ritzy gala. Not during a polished business meeting. I met him bleeding on the curb, outside my building, after a mugger had taken his watch and phone. I gave him water, a place to sit, and patched his wound with a first aid kit I kept under the sink. He never told me his name that night. Just said, I'll find a way to thank you. And he did. 2 weeks later, he walked into the diner where I was working the closing shift. You still make the world's worst coffee, he joked, setting down a check for $10,000. But I owe you more than that. I refused the check. Instead, I offered him something else, a business idea. I had no capital, no experience, just an obsession with tracking failed corporate turnarounds and the conviction that one particular tech firm, one he had just acquired, could be restructured by shifting its logistics model. He laughed at first. Then he called me the next morning. From there, everything changed. We married quietly in a courthouse in Brooklyn. No rings. No vows. Just two people standing on opposite sides of ruin choosing to rise. I never told my family, because deep down, I knew they didn't deserve to be part of my success story. Back in the present, the limo glided down Fifth Avenue. Gabriel tapped on his phone. The statement's drafted, he said. It'll hit every press outlet before they're done serving cake. I leaned my head back against the leather seat. Let them choke on it. He turned to me. You know this isn't over, right? I know. They're going to come crawling back. I looked at him, expression hardening. Then I hope they're ready to beg. The next morning, The media storm erupted. Headlines screamed. Vaughn Atlantic CEO crashes wedding, reveals secret wife, buys out bride's family estate. The heiress they threw out. Turns out she owns the venue. Cynthia Carter seen leaving country club in tears. Sources confirm massive debt.
Calls flooded in.
My father's assistant tried emailing me. Brandon's fiancé DM'd me from a burner account asking to meet. Even Cynthia's lawyer left a voicemail. I ignored all of it. Instead, I drove to a small cafe on the Upper West Side, where a woman in scrubs waited nervously with a paper folder in her lap. Her name was Vanessa Ortiz, a single mother of 3. One of the dozens of employees at my father's company who'd been forced into unpaid overtime and then laid off without severance. I slid a signed check across the table. This should cover your back rent, your kids' tuition, and 6 months of breathing room. Her hands trembled. I don't understand. Why are you doing this? Because someone has to. That was the real reason I came back. Not for revenge. Not for attention. For justice. For every person they stepped on while sipping wine in their glass mansions. That afternoon, I stood at the top of the courthouse steps, alone, and handed over the documents that proved my father had siphoned company funds through false charitable accounts to fund Brandon's wedding and Cynthia's lifestyle. It wasn't even hard to find. He used my mother's maiden name on the filings. By 3:45 p.m., every one of his accounts was frozen. By 5:10 p.m., he was on the evening news. And by 6 o'clock, he was banging on my apartment door. Eliana, he shouted. You have no idea what you've done. Open this door. I didn't answer. But I watched through the peephole as the man who once ordered security to drag me out now stood in the hallway like a forgotten ghost, alone, unraveling. And for the first time in my life, I felt peace. But it wasn't over yet. Because someone else was watching from across the street. A figure in a charcoal gray coat. Holding a phone. They weren't paparazzi. And they weren't family. They were something much worse. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was afraid, but because for the first time in years, I felt something more dangerous than fear, certainty. Certainty that I had nothing to prove to anyone anymore. That I didn't need their approval, or validation, or table scraps of love. I was building a new table. And it was mine. Gabriel was still in the living room, reviewing reports on a tablet while sipping his usual black tea. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at my phone. The missed calls from Brandon, from my father, even one from a cousin who once told me, "You were the glue of the family, but unfortunately, we didn't need glue." They were all trying to come back now. It was too late. But as I scrolled through my messages, something caught my eye. A forwarded email. No subject line. No sender. Just a file titled, "Not Who He Says He Is, PDF." I clicked it, and my chest tightened. Photos. Screenshots. Wire transfers. To a private account under Gabriel's name. Dates matching days he'd sworn he was in board meetings. Payments to a woman listed as Alyssa Drew. The memo lines read, "Hotel, discretion. For silence." Last time. I froze. My heart didn't shatter, it calcified. Could it be true? The man who'd pulled me from the ashes, the man who stood beside me while my own family tried to destroy me, could he be hiding something too? I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I emailed the file to a burner account I hadn't used in over a year, one I kept just in case I ever had to disappear again. Then I walked quietly into the living room. Gabriel looked up. "Everything okay?" I smiled.
Fake.
Flawless. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." He nodded. "I was thinking we should get away for a few days. Somewhere quiet. No headlines. Just you and me." I tilted my head. That sounds nice. But inside, everything screamed. The next morning, I went to Alyssa Drew's apartment. I knocked once. No answer. Then again, harder. Finally, a voice behind the door. "I told you I'm not talking to him anymore."
"I'm not him," I said.
"I'm his wife." Silence. Then the door cracked open. A woman, maybe mid-30s, with hollow cheeks and a fresh bruise along her jawline. Her eyes met mine, and something inside her shifted. "You don't know, do you?" she whispered. Tell me. She opened the door wider and let me in. The apartment was dim,
Sparse.
like someone who was always halfway gone. I met Gabriel 5 years ago, she said, before Von Atlantic went public. He wasn't always this clean. I used to work for a competitor. I had documents.
Dirt.
I threatened to go to the press. And he bought my silence. Then he made me disappear. Not in a mob way, she added quickly. In a legal way. He paid me off, moved me here under a fake name, set up monthly deposits, but it all stopped 3 months ago.
Why? Because of you, she said.
I stepped back. What do you mean? Because you're the first person he's ever loved. And that scared the hell out of him. She opened a drawer and handed me a flash drive. Whatever you do next, she said, do it with both eyes open. That night, I confronted Gabriel. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I just played the file. He watched it, jaw tight. I should have told you everything, he said. But I was afraid you'd look at me the way they did. You mean with disgust? I snapped. No, he whispered. With disappointment. I turned to leave. He grabbed my wrist. Eliana, listen. Let go. I fixed it. I shut it down. She doesn't exist anymore. Neither do we, I said, pulling free. But before I could walk out the door, he said something that made me stop. There's more. I turned.
What?
They're coming for you next. Your family hired someone, a private firm. They're trying to use my past to destroy you. I've been trying to stop it from inside. He stepped closer, eyes raw.
Please. Don't shut me out now.
Not when they're planning to make you disappear like I did her. And that was when I realized this wasn't about weddings anymore. This wasn't even about revenge. It was war. And I wasn't walking away. I was walking straight into it, with my head high, my heart cold, and every weapon I'd ever earned. Tomorrow, I would step into my father's company. And I wouldn't be wearing a thrift store dress anymore. I'd be wearing his title. The next morning was unusually quiet in downtown Manhattan. But inside the 43rd floor of Carter Holdings, the building buzzed like an anthill that had just been kicked. People rushed from cubicle to conference room, whispers spreading faster than caffeine. Eliana Carter's in the lobby. She's with lawyers. She brought Gabriel Vaughn with her. She's wearing white? I was. A stark white blazer, pressed to perfection. Symbolic of the clean slate I was about to write, with everyone's sins in full ink. Ray Carter sat at the head of the boardroom table, trying to hold court like the king he once believed he was. Cynthia was beside him, stiff and pale in pearls. Brandon hovered near the back, arms crossed, unsure if he was supposed to smirk or sweat. They didn't know what I'd come for. But they knew I wasn't here to smile. I entered. No greetings. No hellos. I placed the file in front of my father with the kind of precision that makes grown men nervous. What is this? He muttered. The end, I replied. Or the beginning. Depends on how honest you're willing to be. He opened the folder. Documents. Bank statements. Audio recordings. Everything. The fraudulent charities. The embezzlement. The employee mistreatment. The shell accounts in the Cayman Islands. Even the off-record bonuses Brandon had been funneling through dead vendors. You think you can scare me? My father scoffed. I don't have to, I said. Because the IRS already called. You'll be hearing from them in an hour. He slammed the folder shut. You'll go down with me. You were a Carter too. This implicates you. I shook my head slowly. I changed my name last week. Legally. I'm no longer Eliana Carter. Cynthia leaned forward. Then who the hell are you? I smiled. Eliana Vaughn. Owner of 42% of this company, the same stock you diluted without reading the fine print. Thanks to Brandon's panic, he accidentally triggered a clause that allowed an external buyer, me, to consolidate shares through Gabriel's firm. Brandon blurted out, "That's not possible. I didn't sign." "You did. I cut in while signing your wedding contract. You thought it was a prenup." Gabriel stepped forward and placed a printed slide on the projector. "Here's the merger paperwork," he said, voice sharp as steel. You've all been voted out. Effective immediately. My father turned red. This was a trap. No, I said, voice calm but laced with years of thunder. This was justice. You broke me when I was nothing. And now that I'm something, you think I owe you forgiveness?
No.
I owe you a mirror. Cynthia stood abruptly. This is your family. You made sure I never forgot that. I whispered. Every time you called me worthless. Every time you sneered at my clothes, laughed at my failures, locked me out of my own mother's house. Her eyes glistened. But there was no regret, only regret for getting caught. Ray tried one last card. I'm still your father. And yet, not once did you act like it. Silence. I turned to leave. But then I paused. One more thing, I said. Everyone froze. I walked to the large wall behind the conference table, where a massive portrait of Ray Carter once hung. I pressed a button, and the painting slid aside, revealing a screen. It blinked on a recorded video. It was Alyssa Drew. She spoke clearly, openly, about how she had been manipulated, paid off, and abandoned by my father years ago, not Gabriel, as I'd originally believed. She'd been a victim of the Carters. Gabriel had taken responsibility out of fear that I'd see his past failure as betrayal, not protection. Ray Carter made me sign my name to fraudulent paperwork to cover his own bad deals, Alyssa said in the video. And when I threatened to go public, he used Gabriel to shut me down. I turned back to the room. This wasn't just revenge, I said. It was redemption, for every life your empire crushed. Ray slumped into a seat. Brandon sat down too, shell-shocked, like a man who suddenly realized he'd backed the wrong horse in a burning stable. I walked out. No tears. No second glances. As Gabriel joined me in the elevator, he asked softly, "So what now?" I looked at him. Now I rebuild. But this time with people who see me.